HiRevz Media is sponsored by Born to Ride Motorcycle Magazine. Check out borntoride.com. Alright guys, so here's one update. The big camper is gone. We finally got access back down through here without that huge camper in the way. So we're glad to have it going. And still piddling around with the car. Here's a little sneak peek at the wheels. Looking pretty good. For now, I just threw the weld cap in there just to see what that would look like. But these are Halibrands. And I think they're gonna look pretty good. So we got something special with that coming up in a minute. These are the tires we got. So these are Michelin XZXs, and it's the old school Michelin pattern that's been around. I think these came out, the first radials were like 1961, which fits perfect for the 60s theme that I'm trying to go with on this car. And then M&H Race Masters. And these things are gonna look awesome, and these are legit old school cheater slicks with the wrinkle walls and everything, and literally just the tiniest amount of tread to be DOT legal. So those should be pretty wicked on there when we get all that done. All right guys, so here is the wheel, and this is the anthracite, which looks like, you know, aged or seasoned magnesium, which is what Halibrands used to be. And then this one has a machined lip on it. So it's got a little bit of a lip on there. The lugs go on. These are mag wheel lugs, so they don't have a taper on them. They're flat. They have washers and just extended shank. And really, there's only like 3/4 of an inch of thread in here. So these were what was running on there. Same thing. These hubs are literally 1.5 inches thick, and they were on the drag lights also. So if you're running these or the drag lights, you really want the extended, the XL lugs is what they call them. So to make sure you get plenty of thread. I mean, these worked, and I don't know how many years these were on there really, but they were working. But I bought the longer ones. They just hadn't come in yet. So I'm gonna set all these into place and then show you what we got going on here. And this is essentially what we want it to look like. So the front wheels will have the knockoff assemblies like this, and the rear wheels will just have the chrome cap. These wheels are designed as race wheels to have no caps or knockoffs or anything. And there's a whole bunch of cars from back in the day that ran them that way. But I like it with the knockoff look. It looks like the spindle on the front, and then just a normal 9-inch bolted up in the rear. But that's why I want to make sure that the drag light caps actually work. So I ordered an extra set of caps to make that work. So these assemblies here, the black part is the actual hub. This is just a lug cover. Then that's the actual spinner there. So the way this works on the inside is like that. And then there's actually a snap ring that goes on here. So first thing we're gonna do is loosen all this up, take it apart. Without it crashing and burning. And what's nice about this is this is all cast aluminum. Every bit of it is. Even this is cast aluminum, which is nice, not just a plastic piece or something. This is milled actually. So I think it's cast and then milled, but this has to fit down in here, and it almost fits. You can look, it's just barely on the edge of that. Well, without the washers, it actually fits, but it just barely sits on the edge of the washers. So we've got it to, like I said, these are not designed for these wheels, and these are the Chevy pattern. This is 5 by 4 3/4. On the car is 5 by 4 1/2, which is the Ford pattern. So I'm actually upsizing it a little bit over there, up, 1/4 inch. But that actually gives it just enough room. These actually won't work on the rear wheels at all. You'd have to grind out a bunch of this to make them work. So it only works, what we're trying to do here is, these will be the only ones around that have these. But we're gonna grind on this little area, on all 5 of these, just to fit around those lugs first. And once we get that done, we can put this down, center it up in the middle of all of them, and then we're gonna mark our holes, okay, and do this on those wheels. Now, these caps and spinners and everything, they're made for the 19s and 20-inch wheels that go on like the C10s and whatnot. And they do have provisions for them already on there. What we're doing is putting them on these 15-inch race wheels to make them fit. So we're going to mark those out and drill them and tap them, which is really scary on a brand spanking new wheel. But they look too good not to try and do it. There's also a little pin there to line it up, make sure everything fits correctly. So once everything's down, that does hold it up, I think, just slightly, and we'll know once everything's done. We might just have to grind that off, and then just put where these two faces meet on the back side here, maybe just put a bead of silicone and that'll hold it steady. The lug nuts pretty much hold it steady where these are anyways, but just to keep it from, chattering or sliding around, may have to do that, but we'll just figure it out as we go. So try that. So here's the instructions that they send with it. You got the snap ring and the spinner, and then you've got just the lug cover, and then here's the bolts that go on to hold that down to the wheel. And everything's supposed to finish out like this on the 19s and 20s. So just to give you an idea of what they say. And then here's the bolts. They're pretty good sized bolts. I believe there's a 5/16 20 coarse thread, and then just a snap ring that goes on there. So don't plan on changing your wheel on the side of the road, because you got to have snap ring pliers and everything else to do it. So that can be kind of annoying. However, we don't have a spare wheel or tire or anything anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I think this will be cool, and that's what matters. All right, guys, these bolts that come with this are Chinese something another's. I don't know what thread pitch this is. I think it's an M10, to be honest with you, M10 something. We didn't have anything to match this at all. That's a huge bolt, but these are huge holes, and I don't know why they did that. I'm not sure that's important or not. But we found some really nice ARP studs, or not studs, ARP bolts rather, and we're going to use these instead. And these, luckily, are normal 3/8/16 national course, so we can actually tap these. We can't tap those, and luckily we had a few of these, and we only got 6 of them. We're only going to put 3 in, because that's really all we need. I don't know why you ever need 5 of them, except for just to make it look good. So if it comes flying off one day, we'll know that we probably should have used 5, but I seriously doubt it, that it would get that far. So like I said, first thing we're gonna do now is trim up this little edge around and then make that fit down, and then we can move on. All right, so now we're sitting all the way down against the washers, and you can see I went through on each one of these, just ground it a little bit, and then clean the edge of it. There was actually some burrs on the bottom of this, which is kind of crazy. It looks like they'd been dropped at the factory on the edge, and that aluminum just dinged up, made a little burr. But that's fitting pretty good, so we're gonna get that perfectly centered in there, and then mark our holes and start drilling on a brand new $370 wheel. How's it feel?
Terrible.
It is pretty crazy. However, it's gonna look so good when we're done. All right, guys, we punched each one of the holes and then did an 1/8 inch drill bit, and then stepped it up to the 5/16, which is what this tap here calls for. And now we're ready to start tapping them, see if we can make these bolts fit. But that looks pretty straight, looks pretty good. All right, guys. Doesn't get much better than that right there. Woo! All right, there's it sitting down with the lugs. Look at that. Look at that. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So then we're gonna use their washers that they sent. And then these ARP bolts. And these are flange bolts with the flange on there. That is gonna go down and work perfectly. Like I said, we're only gonna use 3 bolts, so that's plenty, but we went ahead and drilled it and tapped it for 5, just in case. We may end up taking these out and putting regular bolts in here anyways, just because these are expensive ones. But look at that, get the whole wheel up. That is on there, perfect. Now you guys see where this is gonna lay down. Like I said, it's got that little, like alignment pin deal. So we'll set it down into place. And it does seem, yeah, looks like it might be hitting that alignment pin. Maybe not. Looks like it's not even going down to it. But I don't think it, yeah, there you go. So it will need to be trimmed off because it's tighter around the edge. So we'll trim that down, because I don't think this is sitting all the way. And then that'll bring it that gap a little bit. And then we can run the spinner down. Of course, all this has to be done after we get tires mounted on it and get it mounted on the car. Then you go back and put the cap in, but everything's gonna work. I mean, this is looking really slick, actually. I won't even charge Holley for the design. All right, guys, so I was able to grind that little alignment pin off, and now it is sitting down here as flat as it's gonna go. So it'll just kind of center itself up in the middle of this as everything gets tightened, because there's a little chamfered edge on there. So it'll just kind of straighten up. Now we can stick this on there. Now it's all together, and this should line it up. A little chamfered edge, there it goes. And like setting itself up. So now it's got the same amount of gap all the way around, and that looks pretty darn tootin' good. Super nice. All right, guys, so I know he said that we weren't going to put caps on these because they're the Ford pattern, and when you put this in there, it really takes up a lot of the space. I mean, there's not enough room to put washers in there or lugs. However, this is the one we did on the other wheel, ground it back just enough to fit in between the washers. We're just gonna have to do a considerable bit more grinding on the next one to make that fit down in here perfectly. So I decided we'd go ahead and do it and see what can happen. So I got a whole nother set to drop down in there. But ultimately, it'll still look really good. So that will set down like that. And this will set in there. And that looks pretty slick. All right, guys. So there is the hub. And I hogged it out to get plenty of room around these so that it'll actually fit on the small Ford pattern. And it's not pretty, and I'm not proud of it, but it is done. So got one more of each to go, and then that'll work. So now we can get this lined up perfectly centered, and then mark our spots with a punch, and then get to drilling. Ugh. All right, guys, so it's the first rear one that has been tapped now. So I ended up getting these drilled through, the small drill bit, and then the bigger one, 5/16 all the way through. 3/8 bolt runs right in, and should work. Everything should be able to get bolted up now. All right, guys, check these out. So these are the custom wheel cap stickers I had made up. So we'll have these for sale on our site, HiRevzgarage.com. And nobody's making these, or really any Halibrand wheel stickers. So these are about right at 1.5 inches wide. So they're a little bit smaller, but they fit nice and tight in there. So this is one of the 3.18, I think, is what these are. But these fit perfectly in the Halibrands, and they fit perfectly in the weld wheels, and look pretty good. So, but they fit on their wheel, look pretty cool, look kind of old school. But they got that nice epoxy finish on them. So they're bubble. See how they look. right, guys, got the tires put on. Looks pretty good. Right now they're just kind of set in place with a couple lugs, and just the caps just kind of barely put on, just to get an idea, because the front ones are coming off anyways. But got the old school Michelins on the front, and then got these beefs on the back. That's pretty meaty, but those look excellent with the spinners in there. And again, these are just barely put on, just enough to see what we're looking at for right now, and we'll get everything bolted down. But that looks pretty good. It's got a pretty 60s look to the bigs and littles that you might see back in the day. Those are actually a little bigger, but they're not really what you would see. You wouldn't see tires that size. You'd see these are 28, 12, 50s, 15s in the rear, which is about right. So, and then 165s in the front. And it looks pretty dang good like that. So, I'm really happy with that.